Well, hello there. Welcome to this edition of Thought for the Week. We're talking about some meaty stuff at the moment, aren't we? We're talking about warfare, but we're talking about spiritual warfare. The Christian standing in complete armor. It's interesting how Paul says at the beginning of verse 10 in chapter 6 of Ephesians, finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God. The word there is panoplia. It means the complete armor. Nothing's left out. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. I think it's a wonderful thing to contemplate that you and I have been empowered to stand strong against the enemy. And we've been empowered with the power of God himself. Look at what he says. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. His mighty power. I find that absolutely remarkable. This is the mighty power of God himself. Now, there could be nothing more wonderful. And I was very impressed the other day to read this in a book. This guy, a man I respect very much, a guy called Rick Renner, who's a Greek scholar, lives in Russia, of all things. He leads a church in Moscow, but he's an American. But he's a great scholar of the Greek language, and I find it so stimulating. But he was talking about the devices of Satan and about the power of the Lord to stand against the devices of Satan. And he was reminding us of how powerful God is. Just listen to this. With one stroke of his hand, God's mighty arm released so much creative power that the entire universe was flung into being. That's a mighty God, isn't it? Another thing, with one stroke of his hand, God's mighty arm unloosed so much power that Nimrod and all his wicked cohorts at the Tower of Babel were scattered across the face of the earth. Mighty God. With one stroke of his hand, God's mighty arm discharged such a powerful force that the civilized world of Noah's day was flooded and an entire period of civilization was wiped out. Amazing. With one stroke of God's mighty arm, such overwhelming power was released that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were forever wiped off the face of the earth by fire and brimstone. Now, these are things that we read in our Bible, but sometimes the significance of them and the mighty power of God let loose escapes us. With one stroke of God's mighty arm, Egypt's rebellion against God was crushed beyond recognition, and the children of Israel were set free. Amazing. With one stroke of God's mighty arm, the wicked powers of the heavenlies were forcibly shoved aside, and although it was physically and medically impossible in the world's eyes, Jesus was conceived and miraculously born from a virgin's womb. Isn't that something? With one stroke of God's mighty arm, his power surged into the tomb in Jerusalem and ripped Jesus out of the pangs of death, stripping principalities and powers naked and making a public display of their embarrassing defeat. I just love that. That really built my faith as I read that, because I realized I'm serving a mighty God. His might can never be exaggerated. And he is your heavenly Father. And he's calling us into battle, and he's equipping us for the fight in order to stand strong and be victorious in these really challenging times. Anyway, that's enough for now, and I'll see you next time. And before then, may the Lord really bless you. Bye-bye for now.